surprising amount of burst, but against squishier targets, it doesn't feel as impactful. And I just feel like at that level 6, compared to that lilting lullaby, as well as the damage that Lilia just brings, AXIZ should be able to win out on this bot side. So would love to see AXIZ, focus on that bot side early here. Then you can transition to mid lane after, leave Yellow Yoshi on an island. He's always been able to lose very gracefully there, so he won't need too much help.
Yeah, and I have to agree too. I mean, realistically, like in a lot of ways, it's sort of, can Rascal Jester survive the first half of this game? That's what I feel like this is going to come down to, because late game, yes, the Ashes damage will come through. You'll be able to have that Camille split push. It'll be easier to split up the map. It's just whether or not the game is sort of won or lost by the stage when you're looking for that. As already a little cheeky play right here from Swamp, just gets some poke damage onto Eno, does a little dab as they head back into the jungle. Each jungler will be starting on the same side. Not too surprising, as we do expect Swamp to kind of just harass Hachimacha as much as possible in this early and mid game, and the best way to do that is by tracking them sort of side to side.
Yeah, or just outracing them, right? Lilia's clear time is so much faster that if you know where Hachimacha is starting and they do have the ward on that red buff here, you can technically just try and outspeed the Sejuani as much as possible. And it's interesting to note as well that I know for that invade didn't actually drop any vision. So they know where Swamp is starting, but they won't know the details of the clear. Is it going to be a full clear coming through from Lilia or not? Is she maybe going to skip Cam's goal for early invades? Rascal just doesn't have that information.
Yeah, but because, I mean, you'd have to assume, I feel like, just because of the jungle matchup, that you would almost expect Swamp to do a full clear, just because you're going to be able to have that tempo, as Sanchu's got to be a little bit careful right here. Ozuka already using a dredge line to make a save, but it's taken so low. Big work done by Soul in this early trade.
And I'm a little bit surprised that that's the way the early trade went here, Formal. Don't get me wrong. I do think Ashe is strong early, with that volley to be able to poke out. But that wasn't just volley poke coming through. That was a hard commit from Soul and Secret. And the Ashe isn't running Comet for the poke. It's not running Hail of Blades for the early fighting here. She's running lethal tempo. So those are extended trades. AXIZ just needs to be more careful about when they're picking these trades and how long they want to trade for.
Not to mention, too, you got that vision dropped by Soul as well. So, any question mark on what Swamp was doing was answered as soon as they saw Swamp at the Raptors, saw the sort of creep count, knowing, yep, they are doing that full clear. So now they are aware, all right, timing-wise, we're good for another wave or two in that bot side. We can really start to utilize this early advantage that we got. And the end result is Hachimacha, the slower jungler. Yes, they had to give up 2 camps for it, getting that Rift Herald. Meanwhile, down below, an ambitious dredge line goes against the Access bot side.
Well, Formal, you wanted aggression, right? Is that what you're looking for here? These dredge lines from Ozuka. Okay, I'm glad one of us is happy because I'm getting worried with some of these dredge lines he's going for. And yeah, the great point on the hawk shot coming through from Soul here. I guess that's why they didn't need the wards onto Swamp, when you can just hawk shot and give your team all the information you need. So Hachimecha ends up actually skipping wolves in order to secure that early scuttle, so that speed that Lilia had there, we are seeing the faster clear come through. But if you're not actually able to invade or get to that scuttle first here, then it kind of doesn't matter. Is it bad for AXIZ? No. Lilia still skills up anyway, so it's just some little bit of cheekiness they could get early, which they haven't been able to maximize on.
I think the problem, though, that AXIZ is going to run into, though, just because of the way how the clear sort of went down, it does mean we're not going to be seeing that early support from the jungle on the bot side of the map, which has already started to look a little bit shaky as both bot laners reset. It still is a gold lead on the AXIZ side, so I suppose just because the trades hasn't been going their way doesn't necessarily mean the farm has been disastrous, but it's definitely been an interesting game in terms of tone setting thus far, as Hachimacha will continue to be sort of scouted out. Good little read from Megaman right there.
Oh, absolutely. And Rascal Jesters, well, I guess this is their bread and butter, right, Formal? That late game. I had hopes after watching their CGA game, where it's been the fastest game this split, where they had that Caitlyn Ziggs composition. But instead, it feels like, okay, you know what? That was a flash in the pan that decided, we'll just go back to that scaling. Yes, it did lose them the games against DFM and Sengoku, but it looked some of the best competition we've seen so far against the top 2 teams. And Rascal Jesters, they're just defaulting back to that.
Yeah, I mean, scaling, though, is sort of the pathway for victory for the Jesters. I'm just surprised to see AXIZ kind of play a more passive game. The full clear out of Swamp, I mean, yeah, you have that tempo advantage, but I mean, if they weren't scouted out, I suppose I could say they would have been able to get that Scuttle Crab and maybe have made a play happen, but because they were scouted out, it's just been sort of like ineffective use, I'd say, of what could have been an early jungle advantage. And now it's like the game is kind of starting to flow into just a straight up laning rhythm. I feel this only benefits the Rascal Jester side.
And I wonder how much of that was because the bot lane wasn't in the best position to look to punish, with the Kalista, with the Nautilus there.
Yep.
Unfortunately, Swamp is going to get spotted again. So we're probably not going to get to see that focus into the bot lane that ideally you'd want with a Kalista lane here. And you know what? Like I said, for Swamp's more than happy to farm up. They do have the late game insurance off the Lilia and the Yone, and we haven't touched on the mid lane whatsoever here, but Megaman is pretty much even with Recap for the most part, down a couple of CS, and that's more based on lane state than anything else here. So for AXIZ, I don't think they're fueling the pressure just yet here. If anybody is, it's probably just the bot lane.
We'll see. I mean, Hachimacho is looking for something down below. I'm not sure if they got spotted before because it looked like one of those relic marks actually went to the jungler as opposed to Soul. And if that got noticed by AXIZ, then, well, I think that gank would have been spotted out. If not, it's going to be noticed right now as the Rascal Jesters do move towards that first Ocean Drake.
Yeah, and kind of, even if it wasn't, I'm not sure how effective that gank would be. Cleanse flash still up for Sanctuary here, and Hachimecha not yet level 6, so they didn't really have the long range engage to come through. A good play from Rascal Jesters, having spotted Swamp earlier. They know that, hey, Swamp's not bot side anymore, guys. We can go for this free dragon. And the big question now is, what can Swamp do on the other half of the map? Taking away all the jungles, taking that red buff again, looking for those raptors. That's all well and good, but still no signs of any actual ganks coming through from AXIZ so far.
Yeah, it's actually been a little bit disappointing. Even if you take a look at like the creep score at this stage, it is because Swamp has backed twice compared to Hachimacho only recalling once. But CS actually a pretty large advantage currently in favor of Hachimacho, who you would be expecting, I guess, to be the more passive jungler in this situation, or at least be a bit slower on the tempo side of things. Now, though, they are going to discover that their jungle has been stolen as a play is going to break out down below. Dredgeline misses, and that's going to burn a flash now. Ozuka is in a bit of trouble. Soul stops autoing as he kind of got hit by the ignite and was a little unsure. That will end the trade for now.
Oh, disaster, Formal. I mean, the fact that the Dredgeline doesn't land, they could have turned that otherwise. Now Hachimecha, level 6 on top.
This could be bad as the Hextech ultimatum does get dropped. Glacial Prison as well. And with the two ultimates, it will be First Blood going to the jungler, though, and not the top lane.
Now that, Formal, is efficiency. You love to see it there. As soon as Hachimecha hit level 6, started looking for that. They're fine. Their supports aren't doing anything, Formal. I mean, if Soul had canceled the recall, I would have been worried.
I mean, yeah, that's where I'm surprised Soul didn't really cancel. I don't know. I would have been tempted to go for that, but I guess cooler heads shall prevail. Maybe not so much around Rift Herald as Swamp is going to try to bully Hachimecha away. That will buy time, though, for Recap and Megaman to kind of make their way down. Shelly, a little bit confused, going deep in the blue side of the map, will eventually refresh.
And that right there, Formal, is why Soul did not stop the recall, because Ozuka was baiting. If Soul cancels the recall right there, AXIZ have the ability to potentially take that Herald. As it stands, though, because Soul recalls and because they realize Soul is coming out, AXIZ don't overstay their welcome. They don't go for it. And here again, it's so easy for Hachimecha at this point. And I know getting the kill here as well. This is First Blood. We didn't see any action before this. Is troubling because Camille is sort of one of the anti-tank counters in that top side, right? Especially, if she picks up Divine Sunderer, though I do believe currently we do see more Trinity Force than Divine Sunderer, but if she picks up Divine Sunderer, there's no one who can match this Camille later on in that split push here. So giving that early, actually First Blood went to Hachimecha, never mind, not I know. Not perfect, but again, accelerating Camille is never a bad idea.
I still cannot believe the amount of crowd control that both these teams have, but in particular, Rascal Jesters. I mean, everyone's ability just can lock down a team fight, except for maybe Secret. Of course, I'm talking about the ultimates. I mean, Secret has the pulverized headbutt combo, so has their own tools of engagement. But any sort of fight, I feel like, where AXIZ has kind of caught a member or two down, should go Rascal Jester's way. And it goes back to my theory that they're going to be looking to spread out this map, especially as we get later and later into this game. Speaking of a spread out map, however, everyone's kind of congregating down below. Hachimecha thinking about this gank.
Yeah, they're just trying to offset the Herald take, which did happen. Swamp picking up Herald here. Hachimecha just trying to answer cross map, but it's a little bit slow on this particular move. If by the time you hear Herald going down is when you start making the tracks for the cross map, a little bit too late. But Hachimecha, honestly, bot lane, I do think it's the right call here to go for now that you're level 6, now that Soul is level 6 and Secret as well, because now you've got the tankiness, now you've got the CC chain, and Sanctuary can only cleanse one of those multiple CCs coming through.
Well, at the moment, Sanchu can't really cleanse anything because it's still on cooldown, and that probably made that bot side
Even
more
better.
enticing. Speaking of enticing targets, not quite one. Able to hook shot their way to safety.
Yeah, I was wondering if they're going to Lilting Lullaby and full hard commit to this. Young Yoshi's out is back up here, but no, they back up for now. And I think it's the right call. I know still has flash as well. It's a really difficult force. And up to now, Formal, we've still not seen Swamp really go for that gank. At best, we've seen ranging shots, with that swirl seed here, just trying to see whatever you can find, but no hard commits yet. And at the rate they're going, I feel like this bot side for them, Sangchu and Ozuka, you picked this Kalista Nautilus for that early pressure, for that dragon stacking. You didn't get dragon. You didn't get early pressure. And soon enough, I think that's going to be an irrelevant lane. And we're just going to be watching pretty much Megaman and Swamp to be the big carries.
Yeah, which is, again, surprising, and not only when you look at the draft, but it goes back to that early trade, and I wonder if just sort of the call almost then and there, like, you can bring it back, yes, but it sort of had that butterfly effect of, like, that led to sort of a less aggressive play than less aggressive play, but now we see a bit more aggression. Azuka connects with the dredge line, follow through, not quite there straight away. Soul steps forward, but we don't see anyone push forward, and again, Swamp thinks better of it and starts to walk away.
Yeah, and the hawk shot again actually spotted Swamp on the way in as well. So Soul and Secret were at no point really under pressure and threat. I saw Megumin actually looking to roam down. I was thinking for a second, are they going to just brute force this here? 4v2 dive is doable, but now Hachamecha is waiting in the wings, and this is when it becomes kind of dangerous for AXIZ to try and force things. Dragon is up, so maybe that's what both teams are kind of trying to posture over.
Yeah, it should be worth noting, neither top side has teleport available.
Okay.
Dredge Line's going to make contact on the secret as Soul steps forward. There's the depth charge. There's the lullaby. Not quite used
Still
just
holding.
yet. In fact, Soul's actually going to be able to reset a little bit. Now you have a chance for a big lullaby. 3 members of the Jesters are put to sleep. And with the follow-up engage, Soul is the first one to go down. That is going to be returned on Ozuka as mid laners make their way to the play. Megaman, with a bit of damage, is going to have to back off. Hachamecha was able to find a kill on the backside onto Swamp. And now with the re-engage, here comes the damage. Is going to make their way in. The Glacial Prison doesn't really do too much. Neither did the Frozen Tomb. Either way, Mega Man barely escapes with their own life as the Rascal Jesters back away.
Finally, Formal, we get to see AXIZ make the proactive move, and it results in a rather large fight, a 4v4 in this bot lane, but Rascal Jester just playing this so well, so patiently as well. Osuka had to hard commit, and Osuka died so early in that fight that it really wasn't an even numbers. A bit of information inequality here. They don't know Hachamecha's here on this engagement. We already kind of said that the 4v3 would have been dicey as it stands. By the time, they actually get onto Soul, they've burnt so much in Secret with the Unbreakable Will. And if you look at the mid lane rotations as well, Recap ends up being the first one down to that bot side, and it makes all the difference. That extra bit of burst converts this to a 3v2. Megumin kind of looking for something in the back end was overambitious a little bit to me.
All right, Shelly, meanwhile, gets dropped in the mid lane, and no real fight breaks out, just a lot of posturing for the time being, so we don't get to run back that fight down below just yet. Meanwhile, the 2 top laners, who avoided that initial fray, well, they're continuing to hang out in that top side. Eno continuing to get farm, continuing to pull ahead further and further. Dragon still up for grabs, and it looks like the Jesters will make the first move.
Yeah, and that's literally just off cooldown, being faster for Soul here, having the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, having the Unbreakable Will back up here. But now that chunk onto Recap does make things a little bit riskier. Do AXIZ know that's just Hachamecha there?
They're about to find out because Megaman's going to make their way down, and Hachamecha quite low. Fortunately, well, the dredge line misses, so the bot side for the Rascal Jesters will make their way there. Smite secures it for Hachamecha. Here comes the engage. Megaman tries to fight their way through Secret Thieves, an alleyway into Soul, and with Sanju coming up, that's going to be the 80 carry gone. Next on the list will be some hamburgers, as Secret will be the second to fall. An easy 2 kills picked up despite losing the dragon.
Okay, big for AXIZ, but I think Rascal Jesters will be fine with that as well. They are getting their dragon stacking on here. Yes, they do lose 2, which is probably 1 more than they wanted to lose. And I want to highlight Megaman here because I've said this before. I feel like AXIZ looks best when Megaman can actually carry as well, take some of that pressure off Sangchu, especially this game with this comp. But hold up, Sangchu.
Sangchu very, very deep. Has to be careful here. There's the Glacial Prison. Here comes the follow-up damage. Flash for flash. Now a bit of kiting, and Hachamecha got close, but has to back away.
Yeah, I thought Sangchu should have been dead to rights there. But yeah, Megaman, going back to my earlier point, being able to chunk out Recap was really what allowed AXIZ to find those 2 kills. Now, okay, so yeah, this is after Megaman gets the chunk. And if you look at Recap actually is the cancel base, and Recap's kind of low here. So Recap can't full commit to this particular fight. Hachimecha already low from solo tanking as well, and when AXIZ collapses in, they just have a simple numbers advantage at this point. Now, Yellow Yoshi is called down with the TP, and that part might have been overkill. Because Yellow Yoshi comes down, Aino gets free time, and the first turret that falls ends up being in favor of Rascal Jesters, despite the fact that AXIZ were the ones, pardon me, to get that first herald.
Yeah, first tower and possibly second tower as well, because Soul kind of left alone right here on this bot side of the map. That is going to be the bot side tower gone, and that's going to open up a lot of possibilities for this Rascal Jesters team. The hypothesis before was maybe they'd be using a lot of their ultimates as disengage, but with the side lanes now kind of in their control, with AXIZ way into the AXIZ jungle, I feel like those disengage tools all of a sudden become engaged tools, and AXIZ, they're going to have to be very careful with their movements, especially when those deep wards start getting placed down.
Yeah, the vision line needs to start moving as well for both of these teams, really, because for sure, AXIZ need the vision to stop Rascal Jesters from aggressing, but Rascal Jesters also have longer lanes to deal with on the side lanes at this point. So if they want to split push, which they probably want with Aino, they need to make sure that Aino is going to be safe to do so. Formal, I'm personally excited to see those turrets go down because we already said these teams want a team fight. They've got a lot of heavy team fighting on both ends, and once the turrets start to go down, that's when we start to get the bigger fights. As it is, we've already gotten to see, multiple 4v4, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, it is a good sign. The one thing I always worry about when I see two teams like bank so heavily on engage is they get too paranoid of their opponents and like all of a sudden you just dance all the time and never actually fight. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case right here. Soul gets a lot of free hits down on the Sanchu as Secret starts to step forward. Ozuka's dredge line hits a minion kind of hidden by Shelly, and now comes the re-engage. Secret gets himself to the back line, and here comes the cavalry. Rascal Jesters come pouring in and have already taken Sanchu out just as Recap makes his way up from the bot side. Second one down will be Ozuka as Soul continues to kite and stay away from Mega Man. The re-engage now is going to be so dangerous. Yeah, Recap is going to be A-okay with the Frozen Tomb, and that's could be a big fight going for the Rascal Jesters. They might even get the ace. It's all down to Yoshi to escape, but with the slows, with the damage, enough is done. Rascal Jesters win that fight 5-2.
Formal, who needs coffee when the LJL is actually willing to team fight for a change? This is one of your slow games where nothing happens for 25 minutes here. Instead, like you said, Ozuka, throwing out the dredge line, hits a minion, doesn't quite get the engage. And Alistar, I feel like, is a great secondary engage or counter engage champion, right? Once the enemy commits, that's when Alistar looks best. And Secret getting into the back line as well. Sanchu dies at the beginning of this fight. And the moment Sanchu is down, then suddenly, at this point, Swamp's not that big a carry yet. It's just strictly down to Mega Man. And Mega Man's trying his hardest. You can see immaculately played fight, survives way longer than I thought he would have, actually drawing Aino and forcing Aino to hard commit under that turret here. But one carry isn't enough at this point when you're losing so many members, and Soul is effectively untouched off the beginning. So sure, you don't have as much damage on the Ashe, especially rushing the shield bow instead of something like a Blade of the Ruined King. But if you're ignoring the Ashe and Ashe gets to free fire and your AD carry is dead, it's just a simple numbers game at that point.
I do have to question why AXIZ was a bit that like gung-ho on trying to force the fight right there, considering Flash was down for Sanchu. I am going to think that's an interesting choice because we saw how effective Flash was for Soul in keeping them alive, able to avoid Mega Man in that situation. And it just feels risky. I guess that you have like the engage tools and you think, if that hits, maybe we don't need that Flash. But the re-engage potential, even had the dredge line hit, I don't feel like Sanchu survives that fight. And you kind of get a similar situation.
Fair enough, Formona. I'm with you on that here. I don't think it was necessarily the optimal call, even with the Herald there. And Ozuka's kind of throwing it out back out again.
Yeah, why not? Let's just head right back to the mid lane. Teleport's coming through. Dredge line this time does make contact, but it's on Hachimecha, and Secret's like, okay, yeah, I'll follow that up. Oh my goodness, Ozuka almost goes down already. Mega Man now going to try to find the flank, but it's only finding the tank line. Call the Forge God, though, might slow the Rascal Jesters down. It gets 3, but it doesn't get the damage dealers as we see the Glacial Apparition forcing Swap to go gold, and Soul's just biding time before getting those autos down. Mega Man's going to be the first target and the last one, as they're the last one standing. Eventually they fall, and once again we have an ace in the mid lane.
Formal, these fights are not the same. The last time, Baron wasn't up, Dragon wasn't up, so all Rascal Jesters gets is kills and breaking the mid outer, but this time it's going to cost them Baron, potentially Dragon as well. I'm not sure if Rascal Jesters actually has enough health to go for that Dragon, but for Rascal Jesters, they're more than happy to take this. And for AXIZ, the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. Same thing here. Ozika, you're throwing a hook in onto Hachimecha. What were you expecting? It gives Secret that free engage. And maybe you're expecting, okay, Megaman, go for that 5-man fate sealed here. You know, maybe you can turn the tides. Look who he actually catches. Secret, Hachimecha. Your 2 tags. I don't care that you almost killed Secret. That Secret's the first one to drop here. Because while you're spending all that time on Secret, Swamp and Sangshu are just getting ripped to shreds on the other half of the map here. And for AXIZ, these are fights they're choosing to engage.
Yeah, look, I know on the desk, a majority of the people on the desk did feel like, hey, AXIZ is a team that can be a little bit too aggressive, and I'm not going to name names on who kind of bit back against it. But all I'm saying is they probably feel a little bit silly right now in wanting that aggression out of AXIZ in this matchup because they've definitely gone too far. And now it's the Rascal Jester's turn to kind of shove their weight around once again. They're going to be going on Ozuka. It wasn't the first target, but there's enough damage there that it doesn't matter. Good little catch as well. The follow-up Glacial Prison will find. I believe that was Swamp, the second member to fall down below. Eno has to go gold, and Megaman so low. Hook shot. Good dodge from the mid laner out of AXIZ. Able to get safely back under that tower, but it might not matter because the mid lane is wide open.
Yeah, and Baron buff push as well. There's just no way to stop this. No. The moment Swamp was down, it was kind of done. Yeah, yeah. It is a little bit, dicey, a little bit iffy here, for AXIZ. Every single move. For AXIZ, it's like they have to dodge everything. If any CC lands, they're dead. Whereas for Rascal Jesters, they're just burning cooldowns, right? Like, oh, it missed? No big deal. We can sit back, rotate back out. And already here, Formal, Baron buff. We still got a minute left. And it's 3,500 gold power play from Rascal Jesters. Yes, we have criticized them for, playing slow early games here, but this is not the Rascal Jesters we saw on day 2. This is a Rascal Jesters that we remember from spring with the slow early games, but when they get a lead, that they know how to play with.
Yeah, and when the lead is gifted to them by AXIZ picking questionable engages in the mid lane, leading to 2 aces, well, then they really have no excuses but to close out this game as quickly as possible. The first inhib down in the first 22 minutes. They're kind of on pace, it feels like, to break their average game time by about, I'd say, just over, or just under, I should say, 10 minutes at this stage. One more fight, one more of those aces, and Rascal Jesters are going to be getting themselves their 4th win.
True. Yeah. I mean, they already broke the base. So, yeah, one more ace would just be Nexus down at this point here.
Continue along. Looking more towards that top side of the map, we can see a little bit of a push getting set up by the Rascal Jester's side, all members there, and AXIZ could be looking to make their play back up to that top side as well. I mean, they're going to be playing reactionary again. I don't think they're going to get there in time, though, to save this last tier 2.
No, not at all. And great last-second usage of that Baron there. Wore out on that particular push. Rascal Jesters with the split push in their comfort zone. And Formal, you mentioned, that one more ace coming through. Before this, it had to be AXIZ kind of gifting it with questionable engages here. I think Rascal Jesters are strong enough that they can just brute force and manufacture their own ace at this point here. Even maybe under a turret. Sure, they probably lose members off that turret, but they could do it. And as long as Soul's alive, they can just end.
Yeah, perhaps, although I feel like at this situation, it does look as if they're playing a little bit conservative. They could be waiting for that Mountain Soul, especially if they're going to dive under towers, right? A little extra shielding definitely will not hurt the situation. Sure. And if AXIZ steps forward and really commits to this fight, it could be a disaster for them again because of the ultimates, because of that crowd control that the Rascal Jesters are going to bring. The zoning game alone is going to force AXIZ's decision-making to be so critical, and we haven't seen them necessarily execute the smartest plan just yet. This is a dire situation unless AXIZ can really turn their brains on and turn this one around. I feel like this Dragon Soul is going to be the end of the game.
True. Even if you turn your brains on, I don't know what you're going to do here. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Formal, like you said, if they give over the soul, the dive becomes even easier for these tanks, especially in Hachimecha and Secret. If you don't give it up, then you just get aced. It's kind of game over. If you do fight at it, there's no advantage for you. You're down 9,000 gold in a composition that hasn't really come online. Yellow Yoshi only now hitting level 13, right? Got the first masterwork on himself, but no one else. So AXIZ ideally would like a couple more minutes. They've got exactly one.
I feel like this is where we start talking about that idea of redemption. And for the Rascal Jesters, this has got to feel good in some level. The fact that,
Yeah.
the team that kind of started that catalyst into them not performing as well, that raised the most questions about this team was AXIZ, was that upset back at the start of the season. And now as we look at the situation right now, you're hoping, if you're a Rascal Jesters fan, yes, this is the return to normalcy. This is the team that I want to see. This is that dark horse that was supposed to maybe turn heads as the Enchanted Crystal Harrow misses completely. But as we mentioned before, does not matter because in-game has to measure regardless. And now here comes the follow-through. 4 people caught up in the likes of Recap, and that's just going to lead to a big old meatballs on the tail end. Mega Man is going to try to find a flank onto Soul, but there's enough peel out of Secret to keep them alive. Yellow Yoshi will get run down by Eno, and now it's just one Yone versus the world. Mega Man's going to try to escape, going to try to survive. Eno, a bit too fed, gets the ace. That should be the game. Rascal Jesters are going to march their way into victory number 4.
Well, like Formal, you were mentioning, Rascal Jester is going to definitely feel really strong about this one, really good about this one. Honestly, I think they've improved tremendously in the last couple of days, in the last week, the last 3 days here. But it hasn't necessarily shown because they had such a rough strength of schedule where they faced